This is the Burnie Thompson Show. Find the Burnie Thompson Show on Facebook at myfloridaradio.com.
16 minutes past the hour. Burnie Thompson here, and we'd like to welcome Tampa News Talk 8:20 a.m. Glad to have you with us. And we are about to go to an old friend, Senator Marco Rubio. Sir, how are you?
Good. How are you? Good morning.
We're doing great. What a heck of a week you've had, huh?
Well, you know, it's the beginning of what I hope will be a successful process for us to be able to go up and be an effective voice on behalf of all Floridians and also on behalf of the things that are important for our country. Because, you know, nothing that's bad for our country can possibly be good for Florida.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, when I was there, Senator Rubio, just a few days ago, the first thing I noticed when I was visiting my friend Steve Sutherland, just elected to Congressional District 2, is, wow, there are a lot of lobbyists in Washington, D.C. I mean, you must have just been barraged with business cards and smiles and favors people are asking you for.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure that'll happen, but it hasn't yet. We were largely up to last week with supporters. You know, I have more family members in Washington last week than I had back in Florida, for example. So you know, it was kind of a week where we were surrounded by that. I'm sure when we get back up there on the week of the 24th, that'll be part of the process. And, you know, yeah, there are more lobbyists than there are members of Congress. And the thing I always remind our staff and myself is that, you know, folks that have been helpful to us, they buy into our agenda. We don't buy into theirs. We stand for certain things, and if we tell that to everybody, and if people still want to help us, that's great. And if they don't, that's their right. So, you know, I have a pretty clear vision of why I ran for office and what I want to do when I got there, and that's what's going to guide us.
Well, I've been asking listeners what they would like to ask you or tell you, and one of the callers said, please remind Senator Rubio to keep listening to us. And actually, that is the hallmark of your campaign. I mean, that's what you did. It was a grassroots campaign to beat Governor Christ. And I'm sure that listening to us is going to be something that you'll continue to do as a friend of this show, for example, talking to Floridians. But also a caller wanted to know about the oath of office. Tell us about taking the oath of office and how it'll be a guidepost for your actions.
Well, you know, if people see that as like a ceremonial thing and they don't fully think about the prominence of the words, I mean, what the words are basically saying is that you believe in our republic, you believe in the constitutional principles that underlie that republic, and that not only are you committed to those principles in word, but you will indeed, and more importantly, the words remind you that what you are is an everyday American that's had the privilege and the honor of being sent by their fellow Americans to represent them in Washington, D.C. That's what the oath means. That's what the oath is about, and we need to remind ourselves of that. You know, I'm not, when people talk about it, you know, you're a U.S. Senator, well, I'm not a prince. You know, it's not a monarchy. This is not royalty. This is basically, I am an everyday American who has been privileged by my fellow Americans here in Florida with the opportunity to serve for a distinct period of time, and then hopefully I think people expect me to come home one day and live under the laws we helped to pass. So. Yeah,
and you know, one of the things, and you heard this everywhere, that the people are most upset about is Congress exempting themselves from the laws the rest of us have to live under. If there was a provision that basically said, you first, you know, you think government schools are so good, you send your kids there first. You think the health care you want to give us is so good, you adopt that health care plan. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that really is what the rule of law is all about.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's important even beyond that. I mean, those are the things that are the obvious, but even beyond that, I think in order to be an effective representative of people, you have to constantly remove or try to remove from your life things that somehow make you distant from what life is like for everyday people from all walks of life. And so that includes some of the perks of the office. And they're not the kind of perks that get a lot of publicity, but whether it's a special parking space or, you know, letting them cut in security, you know, lines. I mean, simple things that you can do to, and you got to work hard at it. Look, some of the stuff that's out there, what it does is that over time, I think it just takes away your ability to relate to what other people go through. I mean, things as simple as how bad the parking is at the airport. You know, if you get a special license plate where you park right at the door, well, after a while, you forget, you know, how tough it is for people who are trying to fly out and so forth. And that's a small example, maybe not the best one, but it's just an example of the kinds of things that we should be vigilant against. Not because there's anything inherently wrong or unethical about it, but because it somehow clouds your ability to relate to the people who you're supposed to be up there.
Absolutely. It all starts with the special parking spot, and then all of the perks start to come, and you forget where you came from. But Hey, which senator, Senator Rubio, which senator there has been most helpful to you in settling in and getting around?
Well, obviously, I mean, Jim DeMint is somebody who supported me and endorsed me when nobody else would and did. So he continues to be, very helpful to us. And Senator Saxby Chambliss is someone who's kind of served as a mentor and has been helpful to us here since I got elected as well. So, he's been very helpful. Everyone's been very friendly, even the Democrats. I mean, everyone's friendly and pleasant. I think we've got some substantial differences on public policy, and I got elected on a pretty clear platform. I mean, when I ran, I was pretty open about what I stood for on very key issues, and I think people expect me to go up there and speak on behalf of those issues. And sometimes there's this expectation in the press that, okay, the election's over, now you're going to go up there and be different than what you were on the campaign. Well, no, I shouldn't, because people voted for me because of what I was saying in the campaign, and if I now become somebody else, then, they're not getting what they voted for.
Well, your message was exactly the same when you were the Speaker of the House in Florida, when you were campaigning, and in the primary and in the general election, and that is so refreshing. By the way, you mentioned talking about the things that you believe in. Thomas Sowell, the great commentator and economist, he says Republicans have a hard time articulating things like the virtues of tax relief. I don't call them tax cuts because cuts hurt. I call them tax relief. And I wish that the GOP would just say, Senator Rubio, because you do it better than anybody else, talk to us about the morality of tax relief. And I hope that you'll help the Republicans talk better about it, why everybody deserves tax relief and how that really stimulates the economy.
Well, I think the most important thing from a practical standpoint we need to help people understand is that, unfortunately, the left, when it talks about tax relief, it makes it sound like this is just a bunch of rich people who are getting all these incredible benefits and the rest of us are suffering. The reality of it is there's only so much money in the world. I don't care how much of it they print. There's only so much money in the world. And the more of it government has, the less of it there is available to create jobs for everyone listening, for you and for me.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's just the bottom line. And so it's not some, religious belief against taxes. I mean, government has to be funded. We're not anarchists. We believe there has to be some level of government and it has to be funded. The point is there's a point of diminishing return, and there comes a point where every penny you're taking out of the economy to fund government is a penny that's not being used to create jobs and an opportunity in the private sector. And I think we're well past that point in America and have been for quite some time. And we need to get back to a time where the tax code encourages people, not discourages people, to invest and grow.
That's exactly right. I want to ask you about what you think the priorities of the Senate should be. But before I do, I need to ask you the question everybody else is asking you, and I'm so curious, Senator Rubio. You've just started your senatorial career, and people are already asking you about being a vice presidential candidate, perhaps even running for president. And you have said that your focus is to be a good U.S. senator for the state of Florida. However, are you look, it's too early to talk about that. However, the state of the Republican Party hasn't been real good, so maybe we do need you as a VP candidate. I mean, are you at least open to the possibility?
No, I'm not. And I'll tell you why I'm not. Because this job is a big job. It just requires, because every state gets 2 senators, and I'm not being disrespectful towards other states, but to be the senator from Florida is a big job. I mean, in addition to the votes you take in Washington of national importance, our state has a multitude of issues. I mean, it will soon be the 3rd largest state in the country and perhaps the most complex state in the country in terms of the set of issues that we face. In order to be able to do that job and do it well, you've got to have 100% focus on it. You don't have time to sit around and daydream about, well, maybe lead to that, or, and so that's what I'm focused on. I mean, that's what I ran for the U.S. Senate because I wanted to be a U.S. Senator because I believed that I could make a difference from that position. And so all of my focus is on that, and I cannot allow, I won't think about those things, and I'm not, going to, it's flattering sometimes, but that's about it. I mean, the bottom line is that this stuff up there is a circus. That's what the media does, is they constantly speculate. And in a couple weeks, they'll talk about somebody else, and they'll move on. And then finally we can get fully focused completely on this job.
Well, Senator Rubio, that's probably not going to happen, actually. You probably will be somebody because you are so good at articulating the virtues of American exceptionalism and what makes America great. Your time will come, but I'm glad that you're focused on Florida because it's too hard to campaign. You cannot campaign and do your duties as a U.S. Senator. I hear what you're saying. Let's talk about the priorities of the Senate. What do you think they should be?
Well, economic growth is the top priority, because if your economy is growing and then you have fiscal discipline, that'll help take care of the debt. That'll help with the debt. That'll help, fund military needs that we have. And more importantly, that'll get people to work, which is one of the things that is contributing to this general malaise throughout the economy. Now, how do you get the economy to work? Well, the most important thing we can do is send very clear signals to the people that are making decisions in Washington, understand how the economy grows, that we are encouraging, not discouraging, the private sector from growing. And that starts, with my mind, with regulatory and tax certainty. Now, this bill passed and prevented these massive tax increases, and I guess it's a good short-term solution, but the reality of it is that all it does is make the current tax code, the tax code for the next 2 years. We need to provide some permanent stability, and in my mind, that involves tax simplification and tax certainty going forward, so that investors and businesses and everyday people that start businesses or expand existing ones know what their tax rate is going to be now and 5 years from now. It also involves regulatory oversight. I mean, these regulatory agencies, so much now of what's discouraging people from growing in our economy is nothing to do with the politicals. It has to do with the Environmental Protection Agency and a host of other federal bureaucracies that make rules on a daily basis and then enforce them in a way that makes it difficult to do business in America. So to me, it's about economic growth. And then, closely tied to that is about the national debt. The national debt has to be dealt with once and for all. We must start taking steps to bring that under control, because people look at that and say, we don't care what you do with your tax code. If your debt is not under control, you're eventually going to have to raise taxes. And we don't want to invest money in an economy that's eventually going to raise taxes. And, of course, threat of global terrorism. Yeah.
Senator Rubio, we only have about 30 seconds left, and I want to thank you for being such a good friend of the show. This is where Florida comes to talk, and I just want to ask you, how can we help you when you need help?
We're slowly but surely opening our offices up around the state. We've got 5 open, including one in Northwest Florida and Pensacola, and we're hoping to open a second one in Tallahassee soon, so it'll kind of bring us to both sides of Northwest Florida. And I like people to stay in touch with us. I mean, from multimedia aspects, whether it's our new Facebook page or our Twitter account or email, get a hold of our office. We want to hear from you. It's important to us to hear from you so that we understand that the things I'm talking about are the things you're talking about.
Senator Marco Rubio, thanks for being with us, sir.
Thank you.
Be well.
Coming back.
All right.